Reboot It!
Hey everyone, I'm Ron Swallow, and welcome to Reboot Rewind, the official after show for Reboot It. Today we're slashing our way back to a season 3 favorite, Zorro. So guys, let's talk about how this one came about. And look at this.
Oh boy.
Who do we got today? Where is Billy Business is alive?
Look, I've heard the rumors. The truth is, this is what happens when you cross Peters, man. He took all of my shit. I've been sued, and I've got nothing left, so I have to leave here. I took it on the chin for you guys, so you're welcome.
Oh, I'm so glad because I can't have anyone taking my fantasy novels.
I know, right? Look at these books over here. I got Kim Jong-gi sketchbooks. I can't have anybody take those, especially not Peters. He would appreciate them.
He wanted those sketches of thick ladies, and I said, "No, I will die on this cross. You take my stuff."
Thank you. A lot of wank masters appreciate. But
on a somewhat serious note, I don't have my microphone anymore. It's in a box somewhere, so my audio, if it doesn't sound great, I apologize ahead of time.
You're forgiven. We'll do our best to fix it in post, you guys.
This one I remember was I had taken a day off of work, and I was like, let's just pound out 3 episodes. Whether that was a good idea or not, it wasn't. But this was the very first episode of the day, and Ron was not a happy camper. So that's the one thing I remember the most was disgruntled Ron at 10 in the morning.
I think I had slept like literally 3 hours or something, or 4 hours, because I couldn't fall asleep because I got normally I go to sleep at like 4 a.m. And then that would have been like, 5 hours or something like that. But that's not what happened. I couldn't fall asleep. I ended up getting like 3 hours of sleep, and I was like, ugh. And then we had to do 3 whole episodes, and I was basically drunk.
So there was not an argument, but Ron was upset that he had to go to bed early. And I will say this was back in the day when we recorded a little differently. So I would run audio, and I would start recording audio separately from the video. And I actually found this little piece. This was a conversation that we had before we started. And Ed was explaining how he was talking to Ron the night before, who was still salty that he had to get up early. And this was the conversation.
I told him, like, just jack off and go to sleep. And he's like, nah, man, I got stamina. Okay, jack off 4 times. I don't know, dude, Superman.
I definitely don't want to hear what you're about to say, Ron.
I've been going to sleep No, nothing about that.
So I love Ed's advice was just jack off if you can't sleep, man. Like you gotta do what you gotta
It works.
Wow, that is so candid. Damn. That was good. But see, people know that I am the same way on the mic and off the mic now, I guess.
And also, at that point, Billy was barely getting any sleep, period. If I remember correctly.
That was when before we had sleep trained properly. So we were all tired, but honestly, I was so jazzed to do Zorro. I think Zorro was like one of the ones that I pushed for so hard. And to be fair, it's not like I got a ton of pushback. It was like, yeah, we'll get to it. I was like, let's do it now. So I was really excited to do that one.
Yeah, well, I like the fact that we got to quote unquote apply our genius to something that wasn't sci-fi. It wasn't a comic book. Obviously it was a comic book, but you know what I'm saying? It was a comic book character who, like Billy kept saying throughout the episode, was not super duper, was not super armored, even though he was rich. He wasn't really that much of a futurist. He was like if Batman fought criminals with the tools of his time and a really great intellect and good sword skills. And that's it. Polo shirt, so he could get shot and stabbed.
But on top of that, it wasn't even fighting criminals. It was fighting the upper class and the rich.
It was government. Yeah. I mean, that's what was so cool about Zorro too, is you said it, Ed, he has good skills. He's not great. Like, I'm sure Zorro can be beat if you tried hard enough, you know? Like, Batman seems at this point like they've deified Batman so much in the comics that there's almost like there's no, like, if Batman can fight Superman, that should tell you everything you need to know. Like, I don't think that, you know, I think like on a very good day, Alfred could probably take Zorro, but that's what makes it so cool, is that Zorro's like, I'm not the best, but I know I'm good enough to at least that I care enough to go do something. So it was really important for me that whatever story we told, and I think it was important for you too, Ed, because I know you pushed on it, it was, we need to find out why this guy, who is essentially the 1%, cares enough to go against, you know, his upbringing, which I feel like that story to a certain degree hadn't been told.
Absolutely. Now, another question I have for you is The Mask of Zorro is already a really amazing reboot and retelling of Zorro. Were you worried about like copying that? Or, you know, did you find it difficult not to be like, let's draw from that?
Well, Ed and I were texting like this, like a week or a couple days before the thing, and we were both watching it. And we're like, man, this is exactly what I would do. Crap.
Well, yeah, because it uses a lot. And that's why I was kind of on a rewind you weren't part of, Billy. I was talking about our moves. Like, we have some moves now. We have a body of work so that we can see the moves. And one of our moves is new guy steps into the old guy's thing, or this person survives after this super competent hero dies at the end or whatever. Like, we keep doing that move, and I was like, I don't want to do that move in the Universal one. I wanted the FBI agent to survive, and all this kind of stuff. But like, yeah, it was one of our moves. So I think us having to go, okay, we're going to go away from that move. We're not going to have it be a legacy thing. We're going to commit to doing a real origin story, like go hard on an actual origin story for the classic Zorro.
Well, I mean, I thought it was a great point that you guys brought up, that we needed a reason for a guy who like already has everything to like fight for people who don't have anything. Like, you know, because most of the time when you're a rich person, you don't look at poor people and then be like, man, I sure wish I could help those poor people. Usually you're too busy like being in a pool next to hot chicks or whatever. And you don't make the time to go help other people. And I mean, I guess that happens every once in a while, but it's not a lot. And especially during this time period.
Right. It's essentially like there's so many parallels between Zorro and Batman. And we'll get to that because someone mentions it later in one of the comments. But I just thought it was so interesting that it's like he goes and he fights for inequality and then he goes home to his mansion. Like, it's just so strange. Like, you know, like he could maybe, you know, fix things with money, but I think he knows like, well, if I pour more money into this community, it's just going to go straight into the pockets of the, you know, the governors and whatnot. So I'm literally just going to break the law and put, you know, take things into my own hands. It's like, that's awesome. Why has no one ever dug deep into why someone would do that? And I think, you know, Ed, you and I were talking too, like, your first thought when you reboot another move was like, okay, let's see, what would a girl be like as Zorro? And what if Zorro was actually today instead of back then? I looked up like Zorro reboot. There literally was a reboot in development about a girl in 2020 who was going to be a descendant of Zorro and takes on Zorro 2020. I was like, all right, so clearly people are thinking about it. But sometimes, you know, like I think I said it in the episode, I can't remember, but it's like the Crucible is not about the Salem witch trials. It's about McCarthyism in the 50s. So it's like you can tell stories about today going back in time to another place because we are stupid and we do the same things over and over and over. So why not tell the story of all the inequality we were facing today back in Zorro's day? No one's ever gone back to the beginning. And someone's like, oh, you guys did Batman Begins with Zorro. Hell yeah, we did Zorro Begins because no one's done it.
I personally thought just explaining it's not a murder who drives somebody to like fight crime hand to hand. I thought figuring out what would motivate an actual rich person to pick up this mantle and be a vigilante against the establishment, you had to give them real evidence that they needed to abandon a certain part of their privilege, that they needed to for the greater good. Not because some bums wanted to live off their rich largesse and get money from them. No, just as a matter of fact, the people in charge are assholes. And you being rich, you could do something to stop them, both legally and extra legally.
Yep. Yeah. Ron, I was going to say, we can get to the pitch. Full Here's disclosure. So,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to like, hey, I'll clip out when Bill does the rundown at the end, and then we can save ourselves having to type this out. This was back in the day. This was far enough back in Reboot It where we didn't lay out the entire pitch at the very end like is customary now. So we're going to have to piece this together amongst the three of us right here.
Yeah. So, well, okay. The one thing we did was we did a twist on the origin. So he's still Zorro. Don, what's the character's name again?
Don Diego.
Don Diego. And he decides he loses all of his stuff because his dad does some crime shit, if I remember correctly. Is that what we decided to do?
See, I remember it differently. I remember that was one idea and then we moved away. I remember that Zorro was almost like a government type of
that's what we
initiative. He was like a government agent in a way, and then he goes after I can't remember her name. Gloria, was it?
Gloria, I think so.
I don't remember. He goes after the female character, and it turns out she's the one that's like, no, you got it all wrong. Like, I'm not the outlaw. Like, there, and so she's the one who kind of turns him around and makes him realize that Zorro, as part of the government, is not for the people, and that's what turns Zorro into like the hero that he is. There was some John Peter stuff with, I think, like steampunk or
yeah, we had to do a spider.
Okay, sure, yeah, all right. That all seemed ancillary to me at the time, but like I was fine with everything else.
But just also so that I can know, but what you said, I don't remember this government agent jazz. I remember it as in he was the type of vigilante that would go out and do whatever the government said, and that part's true. He would be the guy who, like, classically, somebody's running. He jumps him and beats him up because he thinks that they're a criminal, and he's doing that to prop up the establishment, for lack of a better word. He's always going to go after the guy who stole a purse. He's not going to worry about the person who taxed that guy into being a street thief. He's not going to worry about it. He's just going to grab the thief. He starts out as one of those and gets turned out by the lady outlaw. You know what I mean? He starts out as a vigilante. Like, what if on one of Batman's first missions, Catwoman turned him out and told his ass, "You are on the wrong side, bro. I don't know what the fuck you think you're doing, but you're on the wrong side. It's obvious you have a lot of acumen and resources. You should put them to another good."
And one thing I do remember, and I think this, like, it was something that I had, like, kind of planted a seed for in the middle of the episode, but it was all the way towards the end at casting where I think we cemented it, was the alcalde, which is like the governor. He's like the president, whatever. He's the main bad guy. We're like, what if that's his father? Yes. So that he's destined to kind of take over his father's spot. So it's the ultimate rejection of his lineage, of his birthright. To become Zorro is to not only stand up for the people, it's also to deny kind of his birthright, which just made it even more juicy and dramatic. And I remember, like, the parents were kind of these, like, debutantes and like very, like, rich and kind of like squirmy and all this other stuff, so that the turn really felt like something genuine. That was a really cool part. I liked the idea that giving up Zorro, or giving up this life that he had, was more than just like, well, I guess I just won't have things anymore. It's like, no, you literally gave up, like, your life path. You could have had it all laid out for you, but you chose to become Zorro. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and he chose to help people. Like, he chose the good path. And I think we also talked about starting him off as sort of like kind of unlikable.
Yes, he was going to be a jerk. He was going to be a jerk.
so that we had a character, the thing that I love, a character arc. If you can drink now. And his central wound was that he just didn't understand what people were going through, and he had to learn about that to cure it and then become a better person. And he gets help along the way from the badass outlaw lady. And her
name was Victoria. That was sort of
Victoria. Yes. And the main bad guy is basically sort of an analog for Trump, sort of coming in with a fake gold rush to trick everybody into moving into the town and taking over the town. And of course, Zorro has to fight those guys back and help out the poor people who were suffering to stand up for themselves, get inspired as well. I think that was something we talked about, was inspiring the town.
It's definitely interesting, by the way, that we recorded this in October. This was like a month before election. And I think you could feel us working some things out in this episode, which was the point. I think that's what's so cool about Zorro. It was God, we need a Zorro today. Let's, I think that's where a lot of those ideas came from.
Well, but I also think it was good to show that, much like the person you guys are talking about, it is that person's coming in. There's two established groups. The people like the alcalde, they're from Spain. A lot of them are white. And then there's the proletariat, who are basically mestizo people, brown people. And these guys control the whole situation. And then we have one decide to help the people because he realizes that that isn't the natural order of things. You know what I mean? But at the same time, the actual villain isn't part of either of those two groups. The villain is coming to exploit both of them, just like Trump, bro. He's grafted onto those people's values and made them even worse somehow, and then so it's almost like this third party taking over the body of one party that's fighting another party. So it's I don't know. Anyway, all I'm saying is it seems like, as far as a law enforcement thing, Zorro is something that comes out of this tumult, these people being exploited and all this different jazz happening. It makes a Zorro. But we can see in our movie is the fight for whether Zorro is going to fight for the establishment or fight for the people. And we make it to where we explain why he fights for the people. Because when he sees that outlaw lady, it's he, for the first time, asked himself what drives somebody to be an outlaw. And maybe he saw it because she's a beautiful lady, but he saw it. He discovered, he thought about it. What would make somebody an outlaw? Why does she think this is the right thing to do? Why doesn't she just be like me and be rich and awesome? He's for the first time thinking about his privilege.
Yeah, no, he definitely starts out as an all lives matter guy. And that was definitely, it was trying to find that balance of how do you make this guy painfully unaware of his privilege and then come to be this hero that's going to lead us hopefully into many more sequels, many more adventures. And I feel like somehow we made it there. I really do feel like Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy is not too far off from at least the spirit of this, which is Zorro is very much an idea, and I think that's what we got across, especially with Victoria, which was she is the idea of Zorro, and that as long as these people believe in that, Zorro's not going to die, and that's why Zorro is passed on and becomes different things, and that's kind of what the Mask of Zorro is all about too. I thought I killed Zorro. It's well, no, the idea of Zorro is never going away.
Yeah.
Yep. And last things last, the thing about the villain that's trying to exploit them, about the whole land deal or whatever, it's tell the people there's gold in their hills or whatever, or tell the people, or I think we maybe even had a plot about displacing people from their land rather than taxing people out of being on land or whatever, so you could gather it all up. I remember it that way because it makes sense. It's that you steal people's land so that you can have what's on it at a not fair price, and you kick them into the streets, and then a lot of them will turn to crime or whatever, or at least support somebody who's willing to rob from you. Let's say that. And so that makes this fertile ground for the Zorro jazz to happen. And the alcalde, Zorro's father, being in on it is basically you're making it to where we're going to profit from crapping on all these people. and you're going to cover up, like you're going to report people fighting against it as though they're criminals. That's totally wrong. And that person that's taking advantage of them trying to get the land and stuff is after oil about 30 or 40 years before the internal combustion engine is really mass producible. So if he has that, he can profit, and Alcalde and them can profit real quick on that. They're in on less than the ground floor. They're in on the bottom floor of this new technology, and they're going to have all the land and all the money and all the oil to do whatever they want. That's a pretty big reason to be evil. Honestly, if you could corner the market on that, like Biff with the sports almanac, if you could be that prescient, you'd be a total piece of shit, as evidenced by all the people who were that prescient. I'm looking at you, Zuckerberg. You know,
I mean, look,
go ahead.
You want to have a story where someone fights their shitty dad? I'm in. You roped me in on that one. Let's do this.
The other thing that I really liked that was cool was that, you know, Don Diego comes from this very privileged background. He's like very accomplished at like classical fencing. And then he meets Victoria, and I think she's the one that kind of gives him this edge. She's like, you know, you're not in a match. You know, like, this is how you fight. This is how, you know, I kind of like that she was the swashbuckler that ends up kind of giving him the legendary Zorro skills that we know, you know, from the legends down the line. But in this very early version, it's like, yeah, the guy is just very like, you know, academic about it. And it's like, she's the one that teaches him how to be this adventurer. I thought that was a really fun twist too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe we should get to some fan comments. That's one of our favorite things on the Reboot Rewinds, is reading what you guys had to say and then, you know, commenting on your comments. Huh?
Let's do it.
So let's get Rhino Eat up first. I haven't seen the 90s film since it came out and I was a kid, but I remember seeing it twice, once in theaters and another at a drive-in as part of a double feature with Godzilla when I was young enough to enjoy that film. I've got a big hankering to rewatch it now, and I totally missed it. Had a sequel in 2005, though its RT score, Rotten Tomatoes score, makes me think maybe I should leave it unwatched.
Yeah, I thought this was an interesting comment because I feel like this kind of captures the weird essence of Zorro. Like, there's this character that everybody knows of, and yet it's just like, oh, they made 2 Zorro movies? Like, how do you have this like massive IP that's just kind of like, yeah, I know what it is, but I don't know anything about it. Like, it's very strange to me, I guess, that like we had one very big Zorro movie and there was a sequel, and then it just went like radio silent. And I think it's very strange because, like I've said a million times now at this point, like at this point in time, Zorro seems like such a grand slam tying into the themes of just what's happening today. That it just floored me that I think like most people are kind of like Rhino, where it was just like, oh yeah, I liked that movie a lot when it came out, and I haven't thought about it since then. It's like, man, this is just ripe for the plucking. Why is no one doing it?
It's a great point, because I don't know, I could see something like, and I think that we kind of did something super, if it's done really artistically, and brings home the point of fighting against the 1%. I think that that's I just think that that's perfect for nowadays, because we're all fighting them right now. Facebook is worth $1 trillion, you guys. I
mean, the holidays are all going up into space now. So
yeah.
It's only getting crazier.
Yeah, it's that's what I'm saying. Like, making a movie that is a metaphor, but also a straight up attack at those people. I think it would sell.
But also a summer blockbuster. Don't discount that. I think that Zorro could have some awesome steampunk, maybe set pieces,
Dude, watch him do some weird shit. Like, it's like techno Zorro. Like Zorro makes all the Amazon logos just go down to just the Z. And it's just like, yeah, Zorro's this new.
I just want to see him go.
He's hacking.
It's like you see Jeff Bezos' name, and then Zorro does the Z through it.
Bezos. Yeah, exactly. There's just so much opportunity for Z's in corporate America right now. Zuckerberg. Dude,
Oh,
it
let's
writes
get 'em.
itself. All these guys.
Look! I know we have a bunch of part-time hackers watching this right now. Get out there and start Zing up these fuckers.
Oh, dude. Some IT managers,
Revolution!
some IT managers,
just look, taking it back to just like the roots. Like, I don't understand why Zorro is not a more popular character. Yeah, just like the IP. I don't understand why this is laid dormant. Like, the fact that we are talking about a reboot of Zorro, that was 1998, so like well over 20 years later. Why has this not happened? You know?
I'm sure it's tied up in some weird IP hell of some type. You know what I mean?
I told you they were working on that one it was going to be a girl in the future, but like even that kind of seems like nothing came of that. So
yeah, I don't think that's going to happen, because I saw a video about that one 5 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? This is
right.
That's a Spawn movie.
Well, let's get to another comment. We got Jamelin Parks. He said, that was pretty fun. Years ago, I worked on an officially licensed Zorro project that never happened. Long story. You guys covered some similar ground that we did. We actually did have it set a little later. It wasn't quite steampunk, but we had vaguely around the time California became a state, but most likely before the invention of the car. We also incorporated characters inspired by John Henry, Nikola Tesla, and pirates, with some minor sci-fi elements sprinkled in. I love the world we were building, but it did stray from the source material and would not have worked well in a feature film. I think you guys did a nice job of staying faithful to the legend while bringing something new to the table. Some decent casting suggestions too. I could definitely see Robert Rodriguez directing a PG-13 Zorro. I'd also love some production by a Blumhouse or A24 or some studio of that ilk.
That's really cool. I don't know if we've ever had someone that's at least worked on a reboot, even if it didn't happen, of something that we've rebooted. That's really cool.
Yeah, that really is cool to see. Like, and as we always say, though, there is ground that's going to be trod over, and there's going to be people who choose to trod this ground who will be like, well, obviously the prey went that way. Meaning, obviously, just do the X-Men cartoon. Obviously, do this 10 minutes of Fantastic Four that I remember while I was eating malto meal in 1969. Just do that, and it'll be perfect. All those people, you know, that there's so many different ways to look at this stuff that you end up trotting the same ground, and in the end, it just boils down to choices. And I think in this one, we showed that our choices were pretty damn good. You know what I'm saying? And as we see Vega mature, I don't know if our Catwoman monologue, or rather analog, Victoria, teaches him all of his dope skills, but like you were saying, she makes him hard and part of the world with all his dope skills and all of his I'm a fight crime and do this foppish swashbuckly stuff agenda. It's less cartoon Robin Hood and more like realistic, like you just caught 4 arrows in your neck Robin Hood. You know what I mean? So I really like that that's the part of Westerns that's hardcore, is like, it is a deadly place, the West. And I think we gave a little bit of that back to the thing without making it Young Guns or something.
Well, and not to, jerk us off to completion so I can go to sleep. But
I got stamina.
But one of my favorite things that we did was we said, okay, this is this character. What would drive him to actually help people? What would need to happen to make that choice to change your life, to give everything up that you have, all the great things that you have going on in your life? What would make you give that up? And giving a reason for that, I think, is very important, because, obviously any character arc is important, but like if someone's just becoming a hero to just randomly become a hero because they're good, period, they just were born good and they're good and that's how it works, that's mostly lame. That's mostly lame.
That's mostly how Zorro's been portrayed in live action, though. So,
yeah.
The thing that makes me very curious, and I'm sure there's non-disclosure, so they could never tell us, but it's like the sci-fi elements with that pitch that Jamelin laid out almost sounds like did you guys ever used to watch like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles?
Oh, yeah.
You know, it sounds very reminiscent of that with the sci-fi. I don't know how that mumbo gumbo fits in, but that also sounds like, I don't want to dismiss their work, but that sounds like, yeah, that'd be a tough sell. I can maybe kind of see why that didn't pan out.
Well,
When you put John Henry, Nikola Tesla, and pirates.
Well, that stuff, honestly, to me is kind of interesting. Maybe I have terrible taste, but I don't think I would keep all of those, or maybe pick a lane. Like, you know, we go down to the Gulf and we mess with some pirates for an episode. That's fine. I wouldn't want to have constant pirates in the middle of the landlocked part of California. I don't know what that would be about.
Bakersfield pirates.
Right.
I mean,
you know.
Look, if you're asking me, would I like to see a what if of if Nikola Tesla got as much money as Edison did and got to do whatever he wanted to do while not going crazy because he was penniless and digging ditches? I would love to see that. That sounds interesting to me. And if that's like part of the concept, that would be, I would love that. But, you know, that's just because I'm a Tesla nerd. So
it is kind of, though, like, you know, not that we need it, but it is a little validating that an official project, it's like, hey, we had some of the same ideas. Like, it makes me think, like, okay, sometimes I know we throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, but it's like, we're not that far off, you know? Like, our ideas aren't that crazy if there is some overlap, you know, and other people in the industry are thinking it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So let's get to another commenter. We got R. Moss, Mawse. When Bill mentioned wanting a twist, I thought have Zorro be two brothers. You could have one is the nobleman's son, as Ed suggested, on the hunt for Zorro, and then the brother is actually a bastard who the family hid the existence of and was abandoned to live in poverty. That's who becomes Zorro. You could then have the big twist that no one realized the noble brother stayed close to the bastard as they grew, and Zorro is actually both of them working together and switching places. Have them as twins and only reveal that late in the film, Prestige style, possibly after shocking the audience by killing Zorro, but then he appears again.
I mean, that's a totally different movie, but that's kind of cool. I don't dislike that as like, hey, if we're talking about what ifs, like that doesn't work at all for the story we pitch, but that's kind of neat, like Prestige it and just another way of like, why didn't Zorro die and how do I see him and he looks exactly the same, like all the features. That's kind of neat, you know?
And just, I think this is becoming a weekly segment of the show, which is Ed Greer's, you should write that, you little freak. That's fine. That's that stuff. You made something that is dope. Go make that. Go do some version of that because you like that came out of you. You know, pursue that. Just like we pursue our little stuff in this way, at least so far.
Absolutely, I agree. That sounds like a lot of fun. I even pictured a couple of like things where you're making Zorro seem mystical because he's in two places at once, and it becomes a bigger legend because how was he here and here at the same time? This is crazy. You know,
honestly, that's what always appealed to me and why like I'm such a big fan of Andy Kaufman was that they created this character of Tony Clifton. And so many of them, him, Bob's Muda, I think Bob's brother, someone else, like all of them would dress up. So for so long, people were like, oh, it's Andy Kaufman. It's Andy Kaufman. And then all of a sudden, Andy Kaufman shows up somewhere, and here comes Tony Clifton. And everyone's like, wait a second. I was sure it was Andy Kaufman. Like, that's the stuff that is legendary. So, like, this idea is really cool if, like, everyone is so convinced after a while that Don Diego is Zorro, and then Don Diego shows up and there's Zorro over there. It's like, oh crap! Like, I don't know then, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, Batman did versions of that in different of the comics where he has someone dress up as him. He has Dick Grayson dress up as Batman.
The difference is like in comics you can get away with this stuff, but it's like I know if someone different is wearing the cowl. Like,
heck yeah,
put a picture of Val Kilmer and a picture of Michael Keaton next to each other. You know it's not the same guy. So I don't think that works. But if they're twins, that's pretty cool, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then we got another one from Zach LD Art. He says, awesome episode, very strong pitch, though I'm surprised that the leads of the last Zorro movie didn't come up in conversation while casting the parents. A bit cliche at this point, but would have added some fun chemistry to the movie. Can't wait for the next one.
And I think they mean putting Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones back into the thing. And I see the point, but also they answered their own question because of how it would confuse certain people, do certain stuff, and make it seem like this continuation of that story rather than this new take that we have. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that. So, I mean, I really don't think that's worth discussing too much.
I would just say, I would actually point to one of my biggest cinematic disappointments, which is the Power Rangers movie, where Jason David Frank shows up at the end, but he's just an extra. But everyone's like, "Oh, wait, that's Tommy, right? That's the real Tommy." And it's not. As cool as it was, for JDF to show up in that movie, and I was happy for him. It also created confusion, and in that one split second, I totally forgot about the movie that I just watched. I was like, oh yeah, that was the better Power Rangers. I liked them better. And I certainly wouldn't want to distract from the story we were telling,
Yeah. Absolutely agreed.
Oh, and that the only thing I just had to say this: when Arnold Schwarzenegger showed up in Red Sonja and he wasn't Conan, I was like, "What the hell? What the hell is going on?" As a little kid,
was confusing.
You don't understand the legalities of it. What the hell is going on? You got him right there. It's him. He's Conan. Just let him be Conan.
No, he's like Bronan.
Broham, save me.
That's awesome. And then we had Tunisia Harris. In some versions of the story, they focus on him being half Native American and seeing what happens to them as partly what motivates him. I would love to see that focused on, and it would give some Native actors a good chance.
I was reading the comments underneath this one, and it seems like that's kind of a newer piece of the lore that's been introduced. That's a totally valid take, and definitely a valid motivation for why he'd be Zorro. I think for the story we laid out, I think Bill commented that just wouldn't make any sense whatsoever, because if he's part Native American, he's, especially at that time, he probably wouldn't be considered upper class as it was in the Old West days like that. It wouldn't work out for the story that we were telling. And I think because we laid it out so strongly, and it's such an allegory to 2020 and the 1% and everything, again, that's super interesting. It's just a completely different take on the character, kind of like the Two Brothers one. Yeah, that's a really cool alternate movie from the one as ours. That I'd like to see that one too.
Yep.
Yeah, and the one thing I think I brought it up in the episode when we were talking about the casting of maybe Ana de Armas as the outlaw, the Victoria character that teaches Homeboy how to be tough. I think I brought it up in that a lot of times, when they have the star actress of some of these things, they'll have an actress of mestizo descent, but not really. They have the whitest looking one they can have. And I was thinking of trying to justify that in our movie if we did cast Ana de Armas, having her be a deposed rich person that found themselves down, they were the person who maybe were going to resist the alcalde and they got their life fucked up, like Billy, like how John Peters did to Billy. The alcalde fucked Ana de Armas's family and put them out because they were like, hold on, you're going to screw everybody over and make you and a select group of people rich? I won't stand for it. Well, we'll jack your money and fuck you up and blackmail you and all this bad shit to make you, or rather frame you for bad shit, ruin your life. And next thing you know, your daughter's a freaking gun outlaw. But I'm thinking, if we did cast a darker skinned mestizo actress, I would be certainly happy in our story to flip it to, yeah, I'm an outlaw because shit sucks where I'm from. What the fuck are you talking about, rich boy? I don't give a shit. I would love for the story to be like that. That would be just fine. So I think that way we could get a little bit more native and more so-called real mestizo people on the screen in regards to being their own heroes and stuff, and not having certain white folks swoop down and help them or whatever. Victoria would then be a member of the people telling the 1%, come down here and see how shit is and see if you want to go back up there and lord over us like you're better than us. If you want to come down here and see how it really is, you'll be fighting too. And that's exactly what happens in our movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my other problem with making a rich white boy part Native American is that then it like, you know, all those dudes who are like, I'm 1/8 Cherokee. Okay. Never give credence to those guys. Never agree. That's obviously a joke. And what I would love to see is your version of a Zorro having to deal with, you know, racism, because, you know, it's great.
Yep.
And let's get to our last comment. We got Sean Hannon. Sean Hannon. That was my terrible Scottish Irish accent.
Nah, this guy is a comment star, honestly, because like whether we agree with him or don't, he shows up because this stuff is always incisive.
He said, I was surprised that Billy didn't mention that the Wayne family had just been to see The Mask of Zorro in the cinema on the night of Thomas and Martha Wayne were murdered.
I mean, that's true. It didn't have anything to do with what we were talking about, but I do find it interesting. And I was thinking about this. There are other heroes' origin stories, Kamal Khan being one, where like they are influenced by a hero within their world. But it's interesting. I couldn't think of anyone besides Batman that may have been influenced by a fictional superhero. Other than, which I thought was just, it just speaks to like, I think that's so cool. And then when you see the parallels between Batman and Zorro, how he might have taken things from Zorro, like the idea of Zorro, like it just makes that even cooler. Like it makes me want to go back to the source of like, okay, well, if it's cool enough to inspire Batman, then Zorro's got to be pretty awesome, right? And I think that's where like my head was at the whole time, was just like, Zorro, I think, is awesome. I think people know of Zorro. I think they know of the 1998 movie, but I don't know if they know that like Zorro can be really, really awesome. Let's make it awesome, you know? And I think I was really happy that we did that. This was one where I've been accused, rightfully so, a lot of times that I like to get my way. And I would argue back 9 times out of 10, like, no, I'm pretty collaborative. But this was one where I was like, no, I'm going to bully my way through it. But luckily, it didn't come to that. I think, you know, there was some things about setting it in the future and all that. But I think once we're like, no, we have a duty to tell the definitive origin of Zorro, I think we all rose to the occasion. And I really like this one.
Yeah. Well, and I also feel like it was when I was rewatching it, I realized that a big portion of that possibly put it in the future thing was just me and Ed rolling with what someone had said as an offhand comment, as like, maybe that's something we could do. And we were just rolling with it, thinking that that's what we were supposed to do. I don't think either one of us really wanted to do that. In the end, but I think that's it. Also, it goes with what we're talking about, which is sometimes we roll with something and then you roll away from it as fast as you can. It's a terrible decision.
Well, yeah, just like as we work through, I suggested that Zorro should have gotten all of his stuff jacked, and then and then I watched it recently, and it was like, I think somebody was about to say it, but I was like, no, I know that if he gets his fortune jacked, then he becomes a poor person and decides to fight the 1%. It isn't as wrenching or as moving as a member of the 1% choosing to fight the 1%. It just doesn't work as well. So I vetoed my own idea. And that's what happens in a lot of this stuff. We'll throw stuff out and then kill it later because it doesn't go with the overall framework that everybody's building. So you just take that little part off and then, you know, mold it a little bit and boom, there you go. I just really like the fact that the drinking game in this episode, for whenever Alcalde is said, would get people fucked up. They would be so drunk.
Oh, how Bill would say tornado.
Tornado. You know what's funny is after you were saying that, I just got like a celebrity death match picture of Jeff Bezos and Mark Zuckerberg fighting each other. Just knocking each other's heads off. One of them puts a rocket on him and sends him to the moon, but then he comes back because he had made his own space rocket on the moon.
Well,
he
we
didn't
should
make it
reboot
himself.
Celebrity Deathmatch, right?
Well, dude, those would be the type of moves they would do. They would have dueling rocket fights, dueling
the
private
best part is they
space
both
fights.
explode at the end, right? And we just all get the
Well,
Ed, as you were talking, it made me realize like the other cool thing about this episode is not only did we reboot Zorro, I feel like in a way we rebooted the trope of like the Dances with Wolves or Avatar of the white man going with the natives and going to war for them against his own people. Like we kind of took that trope and updated it and made it maybe hopefully not as problematic as it can be, you know?
Yeah. What happened? We're trying to have an equal partner and a person who's heavily influential on him. Like we've said about how people have had these conceptions of Catwoman that actually they sort of inspired each other because they were both doing stuff around the same time. And you know what I mean? They're this special breed of person like Daredevil and Elektra for your deep comic fans. Two people who are extraordinary and have extraordinary needs and need to be on the rooftops jumping around, need to be getting into this mischief in the night, meeting each other and seeing each other and finding out what each other's about. And he finds out this extraordinary person is about her money because I'm robbing these stagecoaches because I got to help the people. And he's like, well, why are you robbing? And that starts a whole education for our hero. And I do really love this one. And I love the fact, I know this is an old spiel from me, but damn it, you're not supposed to do a whole screenplay in these things. We did, as we can see when we were trying to do the damn recap earlier, it's this beautifully amorphous thing called a pitch. And a pitch is the basis for a screenplay. And at the very end, we introduced the heavy that Victoria and Zorro will be physically fighting through the thing, because we get all the emotional parts of like the Alcalde is his dad and the emotionality of having to fight his dad over the fate of the future, and what his dad's motivation for trying to be a bad guy is actually good because he's trying to make sure his kids are okay for the future and get them on the ground floor. All these things. And then we forgot to add a dude who's supposed to get punched a lot and fight our heroes a lot. So we threw one in there at the end because we had done the heavy lifting, the real heavy lifting. And we hadn't bothered ourselves with the minutia of who does he fight in scene 75 and who pops back up in scene 94 to get killed. We didn't do it that way. We did the story part. You know what I mean? So I felt good about how we approached it and the fact that it's a good pitch.
Well, let me say this before we get out of here, and you guys can comment on this and tell me I'm an idiot afterwards or not an idiot afterwards. But after hearing us talk about this, I'm wondering if it would have even been better if we called this Zorros with an S. In other words, we're making both of them become Zorros. Like, we love to every once in a while say something we could have done to update what we did. But what if in the end, it's both of them being outlaws that inspire the town and even bring people together even more. So like some of the people who, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually kind of in my head canon, because sometimes when we do a rebooted episode and I really get into it, we sign off and I'm still thinking about it for a day or two later. Like, this is one where it's just like I see a trilogy or 3 or 4 movies, whatever it is, but the last one, you have that V for Vendetta type scene where the entire town has Zorro masks on. Zorro is now not one person; it is everybody. And I think a lot of things try to do that. As much as I like the movie, I think Dark Knight Rises really hits on the idea that Batman's an idea, but then it never quite pulls the trigger on it. This is one where I would love to be like, Zorro is definitely an idea, and we pay that off at the very end. That even if Don Diego passes away or gets killed or whatever, like, you can't kill Zorro because Zorro is justice,
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So I think that does it for this Reboot Rewind. On behalf of myself, Ed Greer, Billy Business, and you guys, is producer Bill dead?
Oh, you know what? I think I actually traded. I was like, how about you, John Peters, you take the other Bill and let me go. So I guess
we'll find out on the next episode of Reboot Rewind. And so thank you for joining this special community, listening to us talk about this stuff. We love that you guys comment. Keep doing it, and we'll talk to you the next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.